Flourish is a 2011 book written by Seligman. The book encourages you to foster optimistic views in various areas of your life. This will then cause better well-being for you. I will skip over much of the supporting evidence that the book claims. You'll have to read it for yourself. The following is a summary of the concepts and practical exercises that the book encourages. Chapter 1. What is well-being? Having well-being involves meeting sufficiency for 5 main factors. The factors are part of the acronym PERMA: positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishment. Successfully meeting these criteria in your life can be a subjective task. They are also dynamic. They will change as your lifestyle changes and as you go through different stages in life. Chapter 2. Creating Your Happiness. This chapter goes over 3 practical tasks which will help you lean towards more positive thinking. The gratitude exercise. Write a 300-word letter to a person who has a profoundly positive effect on you. Take time to schedule a meeting with that person to deliver the letter. It is preferable that you read the letter to that person. The What Went Well exercise. Before you go to sleep, write down 3 things that went well that day. They don't have to be huge things. For each of the 3, write down a reason why it happened. The author also encourages us to find and focus on our strengths. A Strengths Finder test can be found on his website, AuthenticHappiness.org. The test is called the Values in Action Signature Strengths Test. When we focus on our strengths, we will feel more confident in ourselves and our ability to control our future. Chapter 3. The Dirty Little Secret of Drugs and Therapy. Active and constructive responding exercise. This exercise involves talking to another person and listening to the good news that they've come across. You are required to engage positively with the good news that they have for themselves and to constructively ask questions about the news itself. For example, if someone approached you and said that they passed a test, a response would be, "That's awesome. How do you feel about it? What did you do so well?" The more you practice active and constructive responses, the better you'll feel, and others will want to spend more time with you sharing the good things that are happening in their lives. If you feel you aren't good at responding in the moment, then you can prepare beforehand by practicing responses to common things your friends already talk about. Chapter 4. Teaching Well-Being, the Magic of MAPP. This chapter is about the MAPP program that the author runs. It is an exclusive program that trains leaders in positive psychology. There is little in terms of details about the actual program, but the anecdotes in this chapter make it appear to be worthwhile. Chapter 5. Positive Education, Teaching Well-Being to Young People. Depression is on the rise in the developing world, and this is something that should be countered by teaching youth the skills required to navigate their emotional lives. This chapter goes over several case studies where positive psychology was used for institutions. Specifically, they were introduced to Geelong Grammar School in Australia, an army unit, and for several digital platforms. The results reported show a significant effect on the well-being of the users. Chapter 6. Grit, Character, and Achievement, a New Theory of Intelligence. Let's review the elements of achievement that have emerged from the theory that achievement equals skill times effort. Number 1. Fast. The sheer speed of thought about a task reflects how much of that task is on automatic, how much skill or knowledge relevant to the task a person has. 2. Slow. Unlike underlying skill or knowledge, the executive functions of planning, checking your work, calling up memories, and creativity are slow processes. The more knowledge and skill you have acquired earlier by speed and deliberate practice, the more time you have left over to use your slow processes, and hence the better the outcomes. 3. Rate of learning. The faster your rate of learning, and this is not the same factor as your sheer speed of thought about the task, the more knowledge you can accumulate for each unit of time that you work on the task. 4. Effort equals time on task. The sheer time you spend on task multiplies how much skill you have in achieving your goal. It also appears into the first factor. The more time spent on the task, the more knowledge and skill that accrete or stick with you. The main character determinants of how much time you devote to the task are your self-discipline and your grit. Chapter 7. Army Strong. Comprehensive Soldier Fitness. In order to have an effective army, the individuals from that army must be successful. This chapter gives an overview of the psychological tests and development modules that the author has established in the American Army. The assessment tool covers optimism and pessimism, and then goes to test several other characteristics that a soldier may possess. There are several modules that can train a soldier and many gaps in their training. The modules overviewed are emotional, family, social, and spiritual fitness. These modules and assessments are indicators for successful Army personnel. Chapter 8. Turning Trauma into Growth. PTSD, or Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder, is a disorder where a significant event haunts a victim for an extended period of time. It prevents a person from functioning normally. This chapter attempts to highlight the difference between those who end up suffering PTSD and those who go on to use their experience to foster future growth, like Rhoda Cornum. PTG, or post-traumatic growth, is where an individual uses the trauma they have experienced to drive future growth rather than a shying away. People who typically find growth after a traumatic event are those who are called resilient or have an optimistic view, so resilience training is often a component of Army training. One skill in resilience training is learning assertive communication about adverse events. The book offers a 5-step model. Identify and work to understand the situation. Describe the situation objectively and accurately. Express concerns. Ask the other person for his or her perspective and work toward an acceptable change. And lastly, list the benefits that will follow when the change is implemented. This type of communication leads to a growth mindset regarding problems and allows all parties to have their voices heard. Chapter 9. Positive Physical Health, the Biology of Optimism. Being optimistic is related to better health outcomes. This is probably because optimists are more likely to take action for their health, like following medical advice. They have good social support and less inflammation response. There are studies cited in this chapter if you care to read it. On top of this, regular exercise is a key driver for better health. This has been known for decades. Even just getting in 10,000 steps a day can give substantial health benefits. The wealth or gross domestic product of a nation correlates with the happiness of its citizens on a logarithmic curve. This is to say that as people become wealthier, it takes more money to have an equal increase in happiness than if they were poorer. This isn't a mind-blowing revelation. The author argues that optimism within the economic sphere is helpful and keeps markets running well. Pessimistic markets often are correlated to downturns and recessions. The book then ends with a signature strengths test, which can be found on the author's website at AuthenticHappiness.org. I enjoyed making this video for myself and for you. Please give your next book recommendation in the comments below. If you found this information useful and want to support my work, you can buy me a coffee, link in the description. Thank you for listening.